Hi everyone, and welcome to the fourth quarter 2019 presentation. My name is Rick Exiles, and I'm the CEO of Funcom.
I'm Stian Dragseth, and I'm the CFO. Good evening to you all.
Evening, morning, afternoon, depends where in the world you're found right now. Without further ado, we will go straight into the slides. Starting with the highlights of Q4, we have Conan Exiles continuing to show a strong game-as-a-service performance. Conan Exiles has done quite well and continues to be a very strong game for us, and we'll talk a bit about more about that in the upcoming slides. 2019 and had an EBITDA margin of 46%, completing the 3 most profitable years to date. Quite solid as well. We have a robust pipeline with Dune Open World as our biggest investment, the Dune Open World game that we've talked about in the past. And there's been an offer from Tencent to acquire all Funcom shares at 17 kroner. We'll give a short recap of the process at the end of the presentation as well. As usual, if you have any questions, please send them in the chat or email them to investor@funcom.com, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of this presentation. On to the financials.
Yeah, so let's dive into the financials. We mentioned that there has been a strong EBITDA for the year, 46%. And Conan Exiles is driving a lot of that performance with quite impressive games-as-a-service performance. And some indicators of this, that the game wasn't just good at launch and then people forgot about it, but on the contrary, it's really continuing to improve engagement over time. It's listed on this slide. So one indication is that the fourth quarter 19 is actually better than fourth quarter revenue. What was better in 19 than 18. That's a good sign. There was more users each year, so 19 was better than 18, which was better than 17 again. And December was actually the third best PC user month of all time for Conan Exiles since the early access launched in January 17.
In terms of average PC users, according to one of the metrics.
Yeah. So that's so we're very happy about that. Conan Exiles is performing well. That's also part of the reason why we've put a lot of emphasis and put a lot of belief in the Dune game, which we'll get back to. Then both on EBITDA and EBIT, that has been the strongest the 3 last years have been the strongest in Funcom history to date. And that's both in dollars and in margin. When we look at this year's numbers, we see that the EBIT is impacted by amortization. That's been the situation also in previous quarters. And we see the cash decline is due to game investments, but also we had a very strong December, and then a lot of the revenue comes naturally after December and after the quarter.
Yeah.
Those were the highlights. Then moving on to next slide, we have revenue and EBITDA over time. And this shows a specific EBITDA margin per quarter. So we see first quarter 2017, when we had early access of Exiles. It was a high peak, but then it went down. When we see after the full launch of the game in 2018 second quarter, there was much more stable development after that, which is a factor of 2 things. Both games as a service portfolio, the games as a service performance of Conan Exiles, but also the broadening portfolio that we have with several launches over the last quarters and also planned for the upcoming quarters.
Yep.
So both these 2 factors are really helping us to increase the robustness and stability of the business, the financial side of the company. And then also, the EBITDA of 2019 was the second highest year in Funcom. The highest was last year. And this is an overview of on the right hand side investments, which we show is growing remarkably. It's growing quite a lot year on year, and of course that digs a bit into the cash, or it impacts the cash. And we see also the development of the cash has been flat for a while, and then a couple of quarters it has gone down a bit now. Partially the December revenues will mitigate that in early 2020, but also we see going forward with the pipeline news that we will come back to, but have already announced that we'll focus a lot on big Dune game, and also with the online shooter Mutant Chronicles coming after the Dune game. It is likely to expect that we need to secure some funding in order to deliver on that plan, to really get the most out of the Dune game that we really think is worthwhile to invest in.
Yep. So these investments are into the game. So this is it's Conan Exiles. It's Mutant Year Zero last year. It's Moons of Madness, Conan Unconquered, Conan Chop Chop, etc. Right, the Dune game that's being made. All of these games that we've been talking about every quarter. That's what these investments mean. It's the money that we have put in on projects that haven't been or projects or activities that haven't been released yet. So what we're showing is that we are investing more, and investing means that this is growth for the future. It's money that we are putting in to grow the company and the games be better, in a better position going forward than we have been so far. So it's really investing into the future.
Absolutely. Then let's talk more about the future and the games.
The fun part.
Yep.
So a bit about what has been happening in the last few months. So we continue to operate our older MMOs, Anarchy Online, Age of Conan, Secret World, with some community events. There's also events happening this year with anniversaries and a few other things that we aren't ready to reveal yet. We launched The Park, our little walking simulator that we made and launched in 2015. Launched it on Switch. It plays very well on Switch, and it's a good little experience to play on if you're traveling or if you're just sitting on the couch and want to play a game. We feel it plays quite well. It was one of the projects we did to learn more about making games for Switch. I think it's a very interesting platform, and learning and trying things out with a small game like The Park is a good low risk way of doing it. And then Moons of Madness launched for Halloween during Q4 on PC. Console launch is slated for end of March this year. So PC was first for Halloween. Console didn't make it for that time period. It's a sci-fi horror walking simulator adventure type game. We think it has very good potential on console, as it plays very well on the couch. It's a very good couch experience. So that was partially a Q4 activity, and it will be partially a Q1 activity with the console release. Conan Exiles, being the most significant game that's in operation right now, had two activities in the period. We had the Botcheries of Derketo DLC pack and Riders of Iboria DLC pack. Riders of Iboria was coupled together with a free update that introduced mounts to the game, so you can ride your horse, and it's quite fun. You have not just horse riding and growing of your horse, leveling him up and having multiple types of horses, but you have different saddles. You can have a light, more scouting type horse, or more heavy saddle to have a different type of experience. You can fight with sword or with bow or with spear to do your own jousting matches. Reaction from players has been quite good, and we're very happy to see that. It's something we feel fits the world of Conan very well, of course, and it's something we've always wanted to do. It has led to December and even January being months with a lot higher activity than usual, which has led to more DLCs being sold, which we are happy to see, of course. We're happy to see that there are more people playing. We're happy to see that the Steam rating of the game has been increasing. It's a really big credit to the work the team has been putting into the game, and we've been not giving up on the game and addressing the issues, be them technical issues with instability or exploits of ways for people to cheat, or with balance of the game, or with more content. Together with the botcheries of Derketo, there was a free dungeon that we added to the game, for example. So we try to do these to add both free and paid options to the game whenever possible. We've done a few Steam free weekends as well in order to show the game to people that maybe are a bit on the fence, and hopefully they can come in, see that it's awesome, and play around with the horses. In terms of activities that are coming, we'll continue to do DLC and Steam free weekend. They are good activities that have worked very well for us. We also have a paid expansion in the works for the second half of the year. We will talk more about it when the team and the marketing department together feel it's the right time. It's quite exciting, but I can't say much. Even saying that there is one is something that the team prefers to keep under wraps, so you'll just have to wait a bit and see until we have some kick-ass trailer or some other material to show. Dune, the Dune open world survival game that we've talked about before. There aren't any particular news. It continues to be in pre-production. The bit that we can say that more than before is that it has an estimated investment budget of $30 to $50 million. So it is bigger than what Conan Exiles was meant to be. During pre-production is when we really flesh out what the game is going to be, and that eventually, when that's done, we have a more concrete idea of what the budget is. But in order to give investors and shareholders an idea of the scope, financial scope of the game, we are estimating a total cost budget in the range of 30 to 50. So it's still early days. We are very excited about the game. We're very excited about the segment of survival games as persistent online multiplayer games with the flavor of survival in this case. And of course, very excited about the Hollywood activities that will be coming up this year as the movie gets closer. The movie is scheduled for December this year, so it will be very nice to see when the trailers start hitting and the media starts seeing what Legendary is doing with the movie, and that then we at some point will follow up with the game. On the online shooter with the Mutant Chronicles IP, as mentioned in a stock notice some time ago, the timeline is now that we are going to release it after the Dune game, so the things have been shuffled around a bit. So the focus and resources have been more directed towards Conan Exiles and to the Dune game. So that means that this game will take longer to see the light of day. There are no particular other news besides that. It's still in production at Funcom Inc. and it's a premium game as a service. So that's all we have for now. Nothing in particular to talk about. In terms of the publishing calendar and the games that we publish that are developed by partners, we have Moons of Madness we've spoken about coming out on console 24th of March. Conan Chop Chop now coming out in second quarter. That is a 4-platform release: PC, Xbox, PlayStation 4 and Switch at the same time. We added multiplayer. If you remember, we made the choice to add online multiplayer to the game and gave it a bit more time because of that. And that means that it's also much more complex to get that out on all the platforms at the same time with multiplayer. So we're targeting Q2. It's looking good. Excited about the game and excited to see how players take a more light-hearted Conan game. Conan games tend to be a bit more serious. This one is more fun, more light-hearted fun instead of the more serious fun. So we think it's a lot of people will like it to play with their friends on while taking a break from other games. In terms of games that we haven't given any details, we're still not giving any details, which is, well, not what people want, but it is what we can do in order to maximize the impact when the games do get revealed. We like to keep our cards close to our chests. And we have a game being developed by a company called Games Farm and a game developed by a company called The Outsiders. We have not given any timeline or any information on these games, but they are both quite exciting projects, and we think they fit what we do in Funcom quite well. So in total, in the company, we have 10 active projects, active being projects that we invest into, that we still have costs associated with them. 5 are new games and 5 are existing projects.
So that's on top of our back catalog of games,
yes,
that is possible to buy and play, but which we don't currently invest in.
Exactly. Yeah, then maybe you can take the side on the offer that's going on.
Yeah, so the Tencent, as most of you are aware of, have launched an offer at 17 kroner per share. That was at a significant premium to the share price just before that. And even higher, that was 27.3%, and even higher premium compared to the share price before Tencent acquired shares in 2019. So the current share price is 1.25 kroner, higher than what they paid last year for 29% of the company. And the offer is recommended by Funcom's independent supervisory board. So that means that any Tencent board members have, of course, not been part of such a recommendation and decision and discussion. That's been dealt completely with the independent board members.
Yep.
There's also been an independent statement. All of this follows the regulation on Oslo Stock Exchange. There's strict rules for how this should be done, and the process is according exactly to those rules. One of those regulations is that independent statement should be made by an independent party, investment bank, and that's Pareto Securities AS who's done that. And they concluded that the offer was fair from a financial point of view, which is of course important for shareholders. At the same time as the offer, we announced some information on the pipeline because we thought that would be relevant information for shareholders to consider the offer. At the time it was a bit early because we hadn't decided formally with the supervisory board because we hadn't had the discussion at the time, because of course the offer came as a surprise to us. So that has been decided now, which we have been through. That was the Dune open world will be higher ambition, meaning that we prioritize and focus our resources on that. So Mutant Chronicles online shooter will come after that game. And then we haven't said specifically what that means in terms of funding. But it is likely that we need some kind of funding to get then a much bigger game than what we've done before. Typically the old ones we had a range of 10 to 20 million, and now we have a bigger range because we see a huge potential for Dune. But more importantly, the process on the right hand side of this slide. It's important for everyone who wants to get more information that you're aware of an offer document that has been issued on 20th February. That's available at our websites. So we recommend everyone to have a look at that. If anyone has further questions, then we recommend you to get in touch with the receiving agent, DNB. As mentioned, this is a regulated process and we're not running it, so it's better to contact DNB or potentially Tencent about further questions.
But the offer document has a lot of information.
Certainly, it's a long document with a lot of
it's a standard.
everything.
It's a standard document. It's a regulated public company takeover regulations, and anyone that is familiar with these processes will see all the normal specifications in that document. But for additional questions, DNB is the receiving agent, so that's the right contact information to use.
And then an important piece of information is the closing date. So everybody has a chance to make up their mind before the process closes. So that's 16th of March 2020 at 16:30. And then it can be prolonged, but that's the current closing date. So everybody owning shares should keep that in mind.
Yeah. So that's what we have. Now in terms of questions, we've seen that there's been some questions starting to arrive, but please go ahead and ask more. We need to look here on the side to see. There's a question about the timing of the Tencent acquisition, if the completion is scheduled to be soon or later this year. As we just said, the offer close date is the 16th of March. And if this affects any upcoming or current games, it doesn't affect the plans that we have. The games need to be made and need to be ready to launch. That's the fundamental thing. No, the plan is as presented, which is what the plan has been.
Yes, that's important to note that we continue running the business. That's our focus, of course.
Yes,
and
that's
every
our
day
focus.
we focus on that, and it's up to the shareholders to decide who the owners will be.
Yes.
Yeah, and then there's one question: will you have annual investor event in your Oslo office this year? That's something we had a couple of times. We haven't yet decided when and if there will be one this year. So we'll get back to that.
At a later stage.
Yeah.
There's a suggestion more than a question saying that we can expand Moons of Madness to another platform like GOG. Yes, we can, and it's something we do over time. If you notice with Mutant Year Zero, it's available on quite a few platforms. We prioritize the bigger stores first, of course, and but we try to get the games on as many platforms as possible. The current priority is to get Moons of Madness on Xbox and PlayStation, so that's where the focus is. We do feel it fits the TV couch playing experience more than the PC one. Doesn't mean that it's not good on PC, but it just means we feel console players will feel will think it's a quite natural game to play. So we're prioritizing that.
Two questions on Anarchy Online here. One is when is it going to be made free to play, and the second is it going to be on Switch. I don't know if the second is a joke.
The second must be a joke because, I worked on the Anarchy Online engine back in 2005, and that it would be funny to try to put it on Switch. It's also very old school MMO. Switch doesn't have. It will need to have 5 times more buttons just to even be able to play the game. So that's funny. About making AO free to play. AO is free to play. It's let's call it an old school free to play in that it has maybe more restrictions in what you can do for free than modern games do. It was one of the first Western MMOs converted to free to play. So you can already play it for free. But the Switch question is funny though. But they're not asking if it's Anarchy Online 2 on Switch. They're just asking if it's Anarchy Online on Switch.
Yeah, so who knows? Maybe one day some kind of Anarchy.
Be careful, Stian. There's a bigger question here. And now someone is asking if anyone has asked about Anarchy Online 2 yet, because that has to happen every stream. So no one has asked. You congratulations, you are the first to ask that question on this stream. It is something that I want to see happen one day, and let's leave it at that for now.
Now there's one question about strategy and about that's on.
So it's the question is a bit confusing, but about the strategy and about the Conan single player game that we put on hold, and now the Mutant game that is delayed. terms of, and our how we think about games. It's more what the question is about, really. Well, what we see is that Conan Exiles has done extremely well, and it continues to do well. It's a game that had its own troubles. It launched in early access when we were in a difficult position, so it had lots of technical problems. So what we see is, well, if Conan Exiles had not had the technical problems it has had, and if we had given it more time, we couldn't have back then. But with another game like Conan Exiles, maybe with the Dune IP, with more time and more quality, how much better would it have done? So of course, when we see that there's something that we have that is working, we want to and should do more of it. So we are continuing to work a lot on Conan Exiles, but we're also seeing that it makes sense to do more like what Conan Exiles is doing. At the same time as we experiment with other games in parallel, both in publishing and in internal. But when there is a good opportunity on the table, we would, it is our job to take it. So that's also what we're doing. So the decision making in terms of which games to prioritize isn't a static thing, especially in the gaming industry where the trends change quite rapidly, can change quite rapidly. So prioritizing now the Dune and Conan Exiles makes sense based on what we're seeing, but we're still doing other games with other genres to see both to leverage our IPs, to grow our fan base and our audience, and to see other market segments that can be interesting for us to pursue. There's a question about why we think we need more funding. And do we think that Conan Exiles will earn less revenue in 2020 than 2019? Well, games tend to decline in revenue, and Conan Exiles already has had 2 launches, an early access launch and a full launch. So 19 already generated less than 18, obviously, because 18 was the launch year. So we expect the games to continue to decline at a certain rate, and that sometimes surprises us and they do better than expected, but is it still within the general declining trend? In terms of needing more funding, yes, we have a bigger scope for the Dune game, as we've mentioned in this presentation. And it is also, we need to make sure that we have everything we need to succeed. So in order to amplify our success, we see that there is a funding need of some kind at some point before the Dune game sees the light of day.
Yeah, and even though we do expect all games to decline over time, it's worth to note that the current trends on Conan Exiles is very positive. So we do believe that the game will continue to perform strongly, and whether it's higher or lower in 20, we don't know, but the general trend is that the games decline over time.
There's someone here with a different question, asking if we have a plan to address consumer anxiety about Tencent's influence. It's of course something that's been quite discussed. Tencent is a shareholder and they are at the board, but they are already a shareholder, as you might know, and have 2 board members. And their position is that we continue to operate the company the way we operate the company, and that's it. So the Tencent is a shareholder on quite a few very successful gaming companies, and that doesn't mean anything in particular. It just means they are shareholder. They are investors. I understand that in the eyes of many people, the Tencent is a bit scary because they are so big. For us, it's a way we see that you can earn a lot from them, and that they will let us make bigger, better games, which will benefit our players. And a lot of the concerns aren't fully justified. So we think that the way we're operating is independent. We treat all the players' information very seriously, and it's something that we keep to ourselves. We just run as a company that happens to have Tencent as a shareholder.
And they certainly have a very good reputation in the industry, and there's no doubt that they have helped support companies to great games and great successes. Fortnite being one example of a company where Tencent has a major shareholding.
And League of Legends, and Supercell with their mobile games, and Miniclip with many mobile games. They are on a lot of very, very good companies, and have been invested there and shareholders there for a very long time. So there is no doubt that they have, within the gaming industry, a very good reputation, and I don't foresee any problems for our fans, our players, our gamers with it. There's a question about the details of the Conan Exiles map. I do think we've said the word map before. Now we're calling it an expansion, and that's as far as we are going to go. What is in an expansion? How is it going to work? We are not going to say anything. The marketing guys will come after us with pitchforks if we did that. So let's have them keep the pitchforks at their room for now. There's an ETA on release date, the second half of the year. When exactly will be announced later, and we want to make sure that it is good when we put it out, and that it's a good time to put it out. And the way it will work, there's no point saying much about it. It will be explained later.
Yeah, the questions, then we're done with almost all questions. There's the last one here. After close with Tencent, is there plans to add large-scale expansions to older titles like Age of Conan, Secret World, Legends?
So we still have a team working on the older games, and they are creating content and activities. Of course, that is limited because those games are getting quite old now. Anarchy Online launched in 2001, so that's next year is 20 years old. It's quite a bit. It's good. The anniversary is just around the corner, it has been just around the corner. So of course we need to scale our investments to the size and the revenue of those games. So very large scale expansions are not likely to happen, as the population on those games, of course, is not increasing on a year-on-year basis. If Funcom is bought out by Tencent, will they have to change their name to Funcent? No, we will not be called Funcent. Thank you for asking. And the last question is, what development stage is Dune sandbox game in at the moment? It is in pre-production. We are working on figuring out what needs to be figured out and what needs to be mass-produced. So in game terms, pre-production is when you go from the very high-level concept or idea down to how to do it before you mass-produce and do all of it. So there's a lot of prototyping, a lot of experimenting, a lot of designing, a lot of de-risking of technically challenging problems before we increase the size of the team and then can really start fleshing out the full amount of content and the full amount of scope and feature sets. So I think that's it for now.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for watching, and then see you later.
Yes, I forgot to change this to us, but that's okay because we don't particularly appreciate the camera. And with that, have a good Friday evening, have a good weekend, stay safe from the COVID-19, and we'll speak again soon.